I was really happy to come across the Sravasti Abbey YouTube channel and see that you have had looks like just over a dozen talks that you've given a variety of subjects. And yeah, so it's been a pleasure to kind of watch you speak on things. And has there been one topic that you felt particularly invested in or interested in talking about the most?
Yeah, the BBCs we do are kind of, they come up I think we all do them about every 2 weeks. And so I do tend to, I mean, I love nature. I have a very deep connection with nature and the environment. So I love playing with analogies and weaving in nature and kind of maybe giving a little environmental spin and cheerleading inspiration to people, trying to encourage people to care more about the environment while also bringing in the dharma and kind of how I see those two connected so intimately. So
And you have a pretty academically and also just in your previous prior to Abbey life, you were doing a lot of wildlife or environmental work. Was that something that's always been a through line for you from a young age?
yeah, since I was a kid, yeah, I remember wanting to save the wild endangered animals in Africa, particularly. But then, yeah, that kind of just evolved to helping, especially endangered species. But once I learned about climate change, kind of helping the environment. So yeah, always had that love for nature and the environment.
Yeah. Has what has that experience been like where you were at one time kind of focused on animals, in particular African animals, and that's kind of a through line for me. It's funny because I'm wearing like a big duck sweatshirt
I
right now.
understand.
I'm big on animals too. I love animals. And then there's this. I was just kind of I was wondering how that transformation happened, where it's not specific to an animal or animals, but just the whole living earth, like the whole climate of everything like that. Does that has focusing on climate anxieties or climate change work, has that kind of changed your relationship to nature in like in looking at it from a uh bigger scope?
Yeah, definitely being Buddhist has helped, like you referred to the kind of the climate anxiety and grief. And yeah, putting it in a bigger context of beyond just this life. And I mean, Buddhism talks about beyond just this planet and universe. So it extremely expands the mind. And that has been comforting when I get, because I can see when I get tight and anxious and worried, I am holding things as very solid and knowing how things are going to unfold and creating this big story of fear and worry. When again, I mean, the Buddhist teachings are like, we don't know what's going to really happen. I mean, there's cause and effect. We can kind of guess, but it's not absolute. And so it does really help keep things flexible and coming back again to what my intention is to help. And that can, I really love playing with kind of expanding my mind to a huge perspective and then also bringing it right back to the moment, kind of back and forth.
Yeah.
So
And I feel like that kind of helps brings a lot of expansiveness into the moment too, where you're kind of like, well, actually, I'm participating in that larger expanse right now, through my small actions or big actions or cooperations. And so when did Buddhism kind of go hand in hand with your interest in environmental causes, like early on, or was it something that you kind of came across later in life?
oh, that's a good question. I mean, I did always love being outside in nature. And I mean, I think a favorite thing as a kid was just kind of laying in a hammock, looking at the sky and kind of thinking, what is this all about? And what's the point of this? Or is there a God? Or what is this all about? And so I guess as a kid, I was kind of just reflecting, but also being greatly soothed and comforted by being in nature. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a cool way of entry too, where the nature kind of created an environment for you to ask those questions. Sometimes I feel like an engagement with hiking or swimming, you just really enjoy the environment of where you are, and then you kind of grow it somewhat not necessarily attached to it, but you have this like uh, fulfilling relationship with nature. And yet, from your story, it kind of has this. Well, it gave me a place to then think about the larger things. It gave me a place to kind of think about some bigger concepts. And do you find yourself going out and about now? And I'm not sure what monastic life is or what life at the Abbey is right now, but is there some out and about wildlife component to your practice right now?
Yeah, I mean, we're fortunate the Abbey has 350 acres of forest, and some meadows and stuff. So we have lots of trails. So yeah, when we have study time, that's I go out to nature to study and be in nature, but also continue to study the Dharma. So
I,
it's yeah, very much
I've
my life.
very much part of it. Yeah, I took a quick look at some of the Google images. It looks like you get some real snow where you are. Like you,
Yeah, yeah, we have
like
all four seasons for sure. Yeah.
yeah. How was your summer?
This summer was wonderful. It wasn't too hot. Sadly, a lot of Augusts now have been really kind of too hot and smoky to even want to go outside. But this year it's actually been nice and cool and not too much smoke. So
Oh, okay, great.
yeah, yeah.
And and this is all kind of happening too because no, as we were kind of communicating before today, there's been a lot of like programs. There's been a lot of just general business busyness at the Abbey, but I've also kind of come across there's a big Buddha Hall project going on right now. What has that been like when you're constructing the Buddha Hall at Sravasti Abbey?
Yeah, I mean, this has been a long, long project for many causes and conditions, but we're getting close to finishing it. Hopefully, I mean, they're putting the carpet in right now, so that's kind of getting close. So hopefully, in the next month, maybe we'll start to actually get to move in. So I've been kind of removed from the project, not completely immersed in the construction part of it, but just watching and supporting the other monastics that are really running the show with that. But it's going to be a big deal. It's really powerful and beautiful. So yeah.
The the visual models that are kind of presented in the video on the website and just seeing some of the drone footage that are that's kind of going on. It's been really cool to see the imagined representation of it and then it kind of like having a frame and being like in the ground. And I mean, I feel like carpeting's got to be one of the last things that you do before, that's like the final stages because you can't be having a whole bunch of rigs and cranes going over a carpet. So that's a wonderful. I'm really excited for you and your community as you celebrate that. Is there going to be a big ribbon cutting or kind of celebration
I
for that?
imagine there'll be several because it's going to be done in state. We've already had two kind of blessing ceremonies as we had different Tibetan teachers visit us. And we're hoping over the next course of the year to have other teachers kind of come and do blessing ceremonies. So unfortunately, the big Buddha statue that we have, the artist is kind of booked up for the next, we're not quite sure when he'll be able to come finish the Buddha statue for the main temple part. And so it won't be complete until we have the Buddha in the Buddha hall. So it'll, yeah, continue to be a gradual process of moving in and getting settled in, I think. But
Wow.
yeah.
Has there been like is there a type of Buddha that will be installed in the meditation in the Buddha hall that is like um a particular Buddha, but also a particular design choices that's already been set out?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty neat. It's going to be a 10-foot Buddha statue. And then on the Buddha's right is going to be Mahāpajāpatī Gotamī, who was the Buddha's mother and also the first nun. And the sculptor who did this is doing the statue has had a hard time finding there's very, very few statues of Gautami in the world. And so it's really neat that we're really honoring the first Buddhist nun and the Buddha's mother as one of the statues. And then on the other side of the Buddha will be Ananda, a statue of Ananda, the Buddha's attendant. So those will be, yeah, kind of very nice compliments to the Buddha. So.
Yeah, and how special that you will have that the Buddha's mother who is not typically represented in statuary like globally. Is that right? Like just it's not anywhere else. You'll have that kind of that representation, that visible representation. And then for Ananda to be there, is that typical? Is that like a usual kind of setup for
No, it's not. Yeah, yeah. You don't see too many statues of Ananda as well. So
yeah. Uh but do you feel that I mean, I guess it is in anticipation of this, but do you feel like when you will be standing before these images that you'll kind of draw a closer connection. I don't know what your connection to Ananda is right now, or to the Buddha's mother, or to the Buddha in itself, but like how do you think that you will be in relation to them, with them kind of in a main central place in the Abbey?
Yeah, I mean, an example is, so we have seen parts of the statues, they're partially finished. And because the artist, he worked on them in France and then had them shipped over to the Abbey to kind of keep working on them. And when they unpacked them, and when I saw the image of Gotami, she was in our barn. And when I saw it, I was so moved. I wanted to prostrate in the dirt. It was quite powerful that I'd never felt that strong to a Buddha statue or something, but it was very, very moving. I don't know, something very powerful about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an incredible thing, especially too with it being not necessarily where it's gonna end up, and it's more I guess like a more sacred or sanctified spot. It's in the barn, and yet you felt like the way it was, the way it is constructed, the way it was lit, that timing of it, it was just a very powerful moment. I'm so glad that you had that response with the Gotami statue. That's really beautiful. Have you had that kind of experience before? Like, have you in your life found you're on your travels or in your studies, or you're looking through a textbook or something like that, and you find something that just kind of has a meaning for you, or does it draw you in, the visual component of a Buddhist icon or figure?
Hmm. That's a good question. I mean, it's honestly at the beginning when I first started coming to the Abbey and kind of seeing this statue that you see in the picture behind me. I was kind of adverse to a lot of not Buddhist images, but the bowing and when in my view, it was kind of, yeah, bowing to a statue. And I was like, what is this all about? I had a lot of aversion. So it's funny that now I see statues and I'm very moved because now I understand the meaning behind it and I'm bowing to what they represent. But to answer your question, I don't know. I mean, again, in being in nature, feeling deep moments of connection and inspiration, and certainly within retreat, deep moments of inspiration and connection. So have nourished me and inspired me throughout my practice.
Yeah, that's a powerful thing in its own right. Like, did you find like have there been outings like into wildlife and nature? Like, is there one setting in particular, like, oh, I love high desert, or I love being in tropical coastal areas? Like, is there something that you find yourself feeling the most necessarily at home in, but just the most connected to, when you're in this type of nature, you feel the most connected to nature?
I don't know. I love any nature.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of a hard question, right? Because it's all woven into the same thing. But yeah, I feel like sometimes I can get surprised. Like, I recently drove over the past couple of years. I had the fortune of driving through Utah, and I had never done it before. And you'll find yourself on a highway, and you're making a left turn, you're making a right turn, and then you'll go down this little slope, and you'll make a right, and then this like jutting red rock will just come out of the earth, and you're just like, you had no idea that was there. It's the size of a small cruise ship. You're just kind of like looking at it, and then you just have to keep driving. You drive through more plains and things like that. So I allow myself to be surprised by it for sure. Well, and so what brought you to the Abbey in the first place? I mean, was Vajrayana Buddhism something that you knew was kind of your lane from the beginning, or did you kind of experiment with different types of Buddhism first?
Yeah, I mean, was first interested in Buddhism when I was a teenager. I think it was a Zen book that I read about just meditation and was just very intrigued by it. And my dad also read Buddhist books, a lot of kind of more on the neuroscience, the brain kind of chemistry and stuff and meditation. And so I was kind of just reading whatever was available. So I didn't really have a specific tradition that I was interested in. But then I saw a flyer in the town that I was living in, which was just an hour away from the Abbey, when I was 26, and saw a flyer from Venerable Shodron was going to be giving a talk in the local town of Newport. And I was like, oh, a Buddhist teacher. Okay, I'll go check that out. And that's really, I mean, I don't know if I would have picked Tibetan Buddhism in the Gaelic tradition if I had been looking for it. Probably not, actually. But because of Venerable as a teacher and the Abbey as a community, for me, it was kind of no question to look other places, just because yeah, it answered my questions and was inspiring that I really just wanted to kind of practice under Venerable
Yeah.
Shodron.
Was there a particular teaching or like entry point for you where you found yourself connecting to a lesson or connecting to a moment that you were sharing with your teacher, where you were like, oh, well, you know what? This person, what they're saying really resonates with me. Or is it just kind of this like, as you started to attend more and more, that this relationship as a teacher started to build and this trust started to build, and you just felt like more and more that the Abbey would become something like a home for you?
Yeah, it was much more definitely a gradual process. For me, I almost describe it as like a love-hate relationship where I was very drawn and attracted to a lot of the teachings on Buddhism of working with your mind and shifting perspectives, and a lot more kind of the emotional, mental aspects, as long with meditation. But as far as kind of the religious prayers and bowing and, I mean, believing in rebirth and karma, I was very averse to a lot of that. And so I felt very torn for a long time, of feeling a lot of deep attraction and admiration and interest, but then also, I mean, I think now it was my self-centered thought being like, I don't want to believe in this. What is this? Like, so it took me a long time to kind of tease those apart, but I kept coming back to the Abbey again and again and getting nourished by that. And the way Venerable teaches is, if there's something that you don't agree with or don't understand, don't reject the whole thing, just put it on the back burner and yeah, come back to it later, but focus on what does inspire and nourish you. And so that's what I did.
Yeah, yeah. So, like instead of focusing on the things that are keeping you outside the door and outside of the Abbey, like focus on the things like why you're there, like what brought you to sit there again, and double down on that inspiring quality. Yeah. So yeah, how do you, because I feel like that is something that is a block for a lot of people. I forget if it was a block for me. I mean, it's definitely something that I still think about, right? This idea of rebirth, this idea of karma, a lot of the uh, esoteric things that sometimes I come across or incorporate into my practice, which is like I mostly come from a Soto Zen perspective, and I'm relatively new to that too. So I'm still kind of developing my practice, and I feel like a block for some people is this notion of rebirth or karma, or these concepts that are for I guess like American, like white Buddhist convert American audiences that might be a little bit like, oh, I don't want the baggage, I don't want the traditional elements, I just want the mindfulness. What would you say to encourage anyone that might benefit or could incorporate some elements of rebirth teaching and lessons, and also karma teaching and lessons in their life?
I mean, one thing I think the way maybe Tibetan Buddhism helps, they use a lot of logic and reasoning and kind of looking at the positive side and of like what would be the benefit of if I did try to believe in karma and rebirth? How would that positively influence in my life versus if I ignore it or don't believe it, what is the downsides of that? And that really helped me kind of be like, well, if I work with rebirth and karma as kind of a working thesis, kind of like, okay, I'm going to go along with seeing if those are true, how does that benefit me? And I found that to be really helpful, of just working with my ethical conduct, being more aware of my actions, and also, again, kind of having that bigger perspective of like, oh yeah, if there's more than just this life, then I want to think bigger beyond just my little tiny worries that I get so caught up in right now, and think of a bigger perspective. And also, I mean, with rebirth, it's like, because of rebirth and karma, that's what allows us the potential to become a Buddha. So if I don't believe in those, then why am I practicing? And if I don't believe that, yeah, that it's possible to really transform the mind. So
Yeah.
they do help in a lot of different ways. No.
I've done some studying, I've done some reading of Tibetan Buddhist approaches, and it really is like it's just broken down in as much of a almost like bullet point way of entry point for certain concepts and really into ways that are more accessible. I won't say that it's necessarily easy for a lot of these concepts to really settle in someone's mind, but it really is broken down and outlined. And I really do appreciate that method quite a bit, and it's helped me a lot with various things. And was wondering if too, when I understand that Tibetan Buddhism has a lot of visualization components, and I was wondering if that also was something early on for you that was difficult for you to uh, incorporate into your life, or and also to see how that's been going. Like how have you found yourself in relation to visualization ritual? How has that impacted your practice?
Mhm. Let's see. I mean, I think I've learned in coming to the Abbey, I've learned I'm a very visual person as far as how I learn and understand things. I kind of have to imagine it in my mind to really understand something. But I didn't initially find visualization easy. I think because I was expecting to clearly see an image in my head, but it's, as I hear more and more teachings, it's like it's not about having a perfectly clear image in your head. It's more about, especially imagining kind of the Buddha or different deities, imagining, and what I really love is imagining just being in their presence, kind of the feeling tone of being in the presence of an enlightened being rather than focusing on an image. It's like, no, this is a living being, and kind of building that relationship. I focus on kind of more in my practice. I kind of build an outline of kind of the colors and the shapes and what that image should look like, but I don't, that's not kind of the main focus. I like to focus more kind of on that, building that understanding and belief in a connection with an actual presence of a enlightened being. Yeah.
And when you do that, do you have to also bring yourself into that space, right? So you're like you're thinking you're bringing yourself into the you're bringing yourself into the presence of a living being and this enlightened being. So there are some kind of peripheral visuals, it sounds like, or there's some kind of like basic ideas visually that you'll have. But then do you also have to imagine elements of yourself or bring yourself into that meeting, or do they kind of come to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's very much, I mean, one of my practices I love is imagining what it would be like to be looked at by the Buddha, a being with complete wisdom, acceptance, understanding, and to be looked at like that. We're not really used to being looked at like that. And so it's very nourishing and healing kind of to imagine being, yeah, in the presence of kind of unconditional love, complete understanding. And it's, yeah, it's very nice. So it's very much a, yeah, relationship thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And you also have to, I mean, I imagine there's an element of courage because there's an element of vulnerability of putting yourself out there for someone to look at. I mean, even if it is the Buddha that has this, I hear he's very compassionate, but like, you know, to have someone else's eyes on you can be a little, you know, not necessarily unsettling, but it's not your typical way of being in the world. So I'd imagine when you do meet that visualization, there is this safety and security that kind of comes from being in that presence. And is there a deity or a Buddha that in particular you find yourself wanting to relate to or bring into your life more than others?
I mean, Shakyamuni Buddha, I do connect with Chenrezi and Tara also.
Mm-hmm. It,
At,
mhm.
at the beginning, it wasn't easy. I think it's very much also like looking at a mirror of my own mind. Like at the beginning, I would imagine look at the Buddha looking at me. And sometimes I would look at the Buddha statue and feel like he was glaring at me. But that was really a projection of my own mind, my own self-doubt and all the judgment coming from my own side. And so it's been a process of the more I can accept myself, then the more I feel that acceptance from the Buddha, kind of. So it's imagining being in that presence of the Buddha is very much yeah, kind of looking at the mirror of my own mind of what's going on inside as well. So,
Wow.
um,
Yeah, because like there is that idea, right, of we the world in some ways is all about your own attitude. Like if I walk out, if I'm in a horrible mood, it doesn't matter how brightly the sun is shining or how sweetly the birds are singing or how great the smoothie is or whatever it is. It can all feel sour, it can all feel bad. And if we're walking into a space and we feel insecure or we feel like we're not doing enough or something like that, you can interpret a statue's glare at you in a certain way versus, yeah, I mean, what a wonderful entry into practice in those moments, and reminders. And I was wondering for Tara, I understand that there are different kind of iterations or variations of Tara. I know there's like a white Tara, there's a green Tara, and and I'm sure some others that I'm not mentioning, but is there a version of Tara that you find yourself gravitating towards?
I guess green Tara. I mean, I do the Tara recitation when I go walking in the forest, and so I a lot of times connect with Tara, kind of that alive energy and that creativity and diversity. And when I am out in nature, kind of seeing that expression of Tara in nature. So I like, yeah, do connect with kind of the green Tara.
Is it fair to say that there, because I read like a chapter on Green Tara in, I believe it was like a work by Miranda Shaw. I think it's Buddhist Goddesses of India. I think that's what it is. And there were these kind of correlations that was in my mind of it being this almost Mother Earth kind of figure. Is that fair to say?
That's, yeah, and that's, I mean, I think there's probably a lot of different ways of interpreting Tara, but there is, to me, that's kind of, I bring in a lot of those elements as well. Yeah.
Mm-mm. And then you mentioned another one. There was like
And Rezi,
Chenrezi.
Avalokiteshvara, that's kind of the thousand armed, also called Kuan Yin
Mm-hmm,
in Chinese culture.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot, Chenrezi has a lot of kind of different names and expressions. Uh,
Yeah. How
that's, yeah.
yeah. How do you how do you visualize or what is your relationship with the Avalokiteshvara and Chenrezig?
That's a good question. At the beginning, I was also kind of adverse to like, especially the thousand arms and 11 heads. And I remember one time meditating and being like, describing the image to myself. I was like, this sounds like a monster, not a Buddha. And so I had a hard time with trying to kind of imagine those thousand arms, but there's he's holding certain symbols like a mala and a picture of a vase that's kind of cures the hungry ghost realm and suffering. And so I like focusing on those qualities of what he's representing. Um, that's how I kind of connect more.
Yeah, yeah. And is there also like how you were saying with Green Tara, there's these recitations that you have in nature. Is there something that you do on a daily basis to connect, or is it also through kind of a recitation?
Yeah, yeah. There's also a mantra recitation, Om Mani Padme Hum. It's kind
Mm,
of the, yeah,
that's
the
where it is.
yeah, mantra.
And we were just like talking about these different iterations, different styles of some of these deities. Yeah, because like Kanon, Guanyin, all there for Avalokiteshvara, there's all kinds of different uh, cultural contexts for more or less the same figure. And I understand that you spent some time in Taiwan. I think it was the Fowen Ce Temple. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but you received ordination there. And I was curious what your experience in Taiwan was like with that kind of cultural context behind everything.
Yeah, yeah. I went there in April for the full bhikshuni ordination. And we did that because it's not offered really in the Tibetan tradition. But it was very different from Western culture and from the Tibetan. But it was really beautiful to kind of put on these completely different robes, kind of very long sleeves, and be with 200 people for a 6-week program. And they had a huge Buddha hall with huge Buddhist statues, and their practice is primarily chanting a lot of sutras and different recitations. And we would do that for, I forget, 2.5 hours, 2 or 3 hours a day for the practice. And it was very transformative as far as really being with so many other people and kind of just letting go of this I got to do my own thing, be an independent person and make people know who I am. It was very much kind of the opposite, and just letting go of that and becoming kind of a vessel of the Dharma. So I kind of left that program really feeling kind of a sense of integrity, of really cherishing and appreciating the Dharma and wanting to carry it forward and be kind of, like I said, that vessel of carrying forward the Dharma and appreciating it and helping to share it with other people. So it was,
Yeah.
it was very challenging program, kind of physically, because it was very hot and humid, and we had 5 layers of robes on, very formal kind of Chinese culture tradition, but also incredibly powerful in working with the mind and kind of a transformative process.
Yeah. And so it is a just so I have it down in my head, right? So that it's a bhikshuni ordination, which is that typically like Theravada? Is that the what is the that ordination that word kind of referring to?
Yeah, so there's kind of 2 levels of ordination. One's called kind of the novice, where it's shramanera or shamanaries, and you typically do that for about 2 years, at least for the women. And then in the uh, Mahayana tradition, or I guess also in Theravada, but it's not even common for women in that tradition also to become fully ordained, so
Hmm.
that you can participate kind of in all the monastic rites, like Varsa, the rains retreat, and Pasada, kind of the fourth, every 2 weeks you do a confession ceremony, and you can do that when you're fully ordained. Um,
Yeah.
so that, yeah, those kind of two levels, and sadly it's not as common for women. So you kind of have to find the right organizations that are carrying forward those full ordinations, because it's kind of a big deal that you have to have at least 10 female bhikshunis and 10 male bhikshus fully ordained. So you have to have 20 preceptors. So sometimes that's hard to get people, and I believe they have to be ordained for at least 10 years as well. So you have to, it's a big deal to be able to get this ordination.
Yeah. Was that a major stressor? Like, where you find yourself, well, I want to be ordained, and now I have to kind of jump through a lot of different kind of organizational hoops to kind of make this happen. Or did it also kind of like, while you were doing that, kind of instill like, well, this is a reminder that this is actually a very deeply meaningful thing for me, and it doesn't matter how long it takes for me to figure out how to get it done.
Yeah, I wasn't too stressed about it. Unfortunately, at the Abbey, other people have kind of done this process that it's kind of known, like you take your novice precepts, and then generally in 2 years we go to Taiwan to receive the full ordination. And this temple in particular, Foensi, does an incredibly excellent job of being very organized and doing a longer program. So you really receive a lot of teachings from these really great teachers. And so I felt like I was kind of just carried along, and
Nice.
incredibly grateful to be able to have that opportunity.
Nice. And when you were saying like you had to kind of get used to some chanting, has now your experience receiving ordination there at that temple opened you up to chanting in a different way now? I mean, have you kind of incorporated more of that into your practice these days?
We actually at the Abbey, we have incorporated a little of the Chinese chanting, kind of in honor of our monastic lineage, the Dharma in the Chinese tradition. And so on Tuesdays and Saturdays, we do chanting practice instead of our normal meditation practice. And it's very beautiful to all be chanting together, and kind of it's a purification practice where you're alternating bowing and prostrating, and it's a very powerful practice and quite beautiful.
Do you find like that practice like a activity like that, where it's chanting and prostrations, that you kind of dial in to focus and raising awareness and developing awareness more with a bodily engagement? Is that kind of something that's necessary for you to kind of feel like you are in connection, or do you feel more connected when you are kind of more seated, I guess, in a more visual context, or is there just like they all kind of contribute how they're going to contribute?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, there is something very powerful about practicing with other people, and especially singing and chanting together, because you can tell when people are not in harmony, kind of mentally and in singing, that it's like it doesn't sound right because people are distracted or thinking of something else or afflicted, and you can tell that in the chanting. And so it's quite beautiful when we are all in harmony and kind of very focused on what we're doing and saying together in unison. And that is very, yeah, connecting and beautiful and inspiring.
And has singing always been a part of your life, or is this something that the Abbey kind of turned you on to?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a terrible singer. I'm always out of tune. I used to joke that I can sing in tune with Bob Dylan, but that's about it. So, um, I don't think I'll ever be asked to be one of the main leading singers. But being in the Abbey, I do love the singing together in harmony. So and trying, I just have to do it a little quieter than everybody else.
Yeah, I also I'm not necessarily blessed with that ability, but I can appreciate it, and I really do appreciate with the Abbey's online presence. There's some audio, there's some song that's kind of woven into some of the videos, and it's just very beautiful to hear. And so if you're in there, you're doing a wonderful job, and I can hear it, and it's great. But yeah, it was just because like that can be also something where some people might see as a block into their practice, into deepening their practice in their respective traditions, is the vocal communal thing. Because I think some people might look at chanting as a little too religious or a little too something else. Um, and it's great to hear that you find yourself, when you are surrounded by people, that there is something powerful about that, and that there is something harmonious about that. Even when people are distracted, you can kind of use it as a moment to see, well, that's maybe they are not focused in a way that they can be right now. I can offer some compassion to that. Maybe when I'm off key, I can offer compassion myself and just have some space around that. That's a really wonderful thing. And yeah, I was thinking about it too, like with we were talking about the chanting process. Oh yeah, and I was when now that you are ordained, and that it's been some time, I think, since then, since you were in Taiwan. How has been ordained changed your outlook and your way of being at the Abbey? Does it felt like you have reached another level of fulfillment and commitment that kind of go hand in hand, that are really supportive, or does it kind of feel like, well, every day kind of still feels like the first day, and I don't really know what's going on?
No, I did feel very different after the full ordination. I think the really big shift was it really shifted from, I guess, being focused mostly on myself to really, yeah, wanting to carry on the Dharma and thinking about how important it is to share the Dharma with others. So I think that was the huge shift of really thinking more about myself into thinking, how can I serve? How can I share the Dharma? A big theme that I had during the full ordination that I still come back to was kind of, there's two mental factors of integrity and consideration for others. And I do feel a much stronger sense of integrity, kind of self-confidence and ease, and that confidence in holding up ethical conduct and being a monastic and representing the Dharma, and kind of, yeah, joy and an ease in feeling that, and then also wanting to, yeah, care for and help others. So it's kind of coming from that place of self-confidence and that integrity. I then want to really think about how I can help others. So it was quite a powerful practice and process. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds really profound. I mean, to find yourself in the space where you have taken care of a lot of what you can take care of for yourself, enough to the point where now it's time to kind of focus on bringing this and showing this to someone else. I mean, that's got to be a really fulfilling um, experience to have. And and I'm just so happy that that you've had that, and that you're experiencing that, and that you are interested in sharing what has benefited you so much, and your community so much, and the people in your community so much. And so how would you, in an ideal way, share the Dharma? Is it as through these YouTube videos where you kind of present some of these talks every 2 weeks, or is it would you want to write a book, or is it more does it more so, or does it just include, you're flying, you're on an airplane, you're sitting next to somebody, and just being there, who you are, in it, not trying to talk about Dharma necessarily, just being who you are in that moment enough?
Mhm. Yeah, I think it is, I mean, in many different ways of connecting. Like just earlier today, I was at I guess it's a machine shop with another monastic, and we were trying to get a metal part fixed for our table saw. And so this is North Idaho, kind of greasy, dirty men, and going as a monastic, kind of salt of the earth type of characters, and going in as a monastic and just talking with them human to human, and being like, oh yeah, we live up the road, and kind of we're neighbors. So sharing the Dharma through kindness, in a way, that direct connection. I do have a dream of leading. I mean, I used to love backpacking and camping. And so I have a dream of kind of leading backpacking guided meditations, kind of guiding people out into nature, helping them to connect with nature and meditation and Buddhism, and also appreciating the earth. So kind of weaving those two, those are my two passions in life. So weaving those two together so that anyone can, again, connect with nature and connect with a sense of a spiritual practice, and wanting to develop themselves inwardly also. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I really hope you do that. I mean, that sounds amazing. To be led by someone with your experiences in both realms. I mean, in the study of the natural world, and also the study of Buddhism, and and being able to point out the correlations in discussion and talk, and then also just, picking up a leaf, like acting, like really just like being with the leaf, and doing what that is within a natural and a Buddhist environment, and also whatever it is that's wordless that can be a part of it. Sounds like absolutely amazing. Is there a place would you want to? Are you from the Washington area, or where are you? You are
Yeah,
from? Yeah.
Olympia, so kind of the
Oh,
Northwest.
that's
Yeah.
right. Sorry. Would you want it to be in that spot? Like, would you feel that you'd want to lead retreats in that area, or is there a kind of another range, or nature state park or something like that that you'd want to have as a spot to do that?
Yeah, I mean, anywhere. I love high alpine mountains, so I guess wherever I'm more familiar with is
Yeah.
um,
What and because you mentioned looking at the sky as um, a place to rest your eyes, I guess, while you were thinking about big thoughts. Does does the moon and the stars and the clouds and things like that, and I suppose the sun is just harder to look at that one. But the do celestial events like that we can see with a naked eye, what does that do for you? Like, does the night sky do something for you these days?
mhm. I mean, definitely the night sky, and especially the blue sky. I mean, that's again kind of, I really love reflecting on the analogy that the mind is like the sky, and that the clouds are just kind of our obscurations and our afflictions and the confusion that blocks that purity and that vastness. So I love reflecting on the sky and reflecting on that potential of the mind.
Hmm.
And of course, looking at the stars is again helpful of thinking beyond just this planet Earth and endless universes, and again stretching my mind to a much bigger perspective of time and space is,
Yeah.
yeah, very powerful.
We're very fortunate, I think, right now to have on our hands a super moon. I think it's waning now, but we've had a pretty significant super moon happening, and it's such a treat to see a fully illuminated ball of light just kind of softly, you know, go its course. And it's just an amazing thing to have. And all the people on Earth and all the, I don't know if some animals can see it or whatever it is, or feel like in relation to it, for all of time have been able to see that object. It's just like it really does kind of put a lot of things into a really interesting perspective. Um, yeah, I'm glad that, but here I am. I mean, I think like the night sky has these delightful little twinklings, whereas just the blue sky, and when the clouds come in, or when the fog comes in, or when the wildfire smoke comes in, that for you can be a moment of practice, and you can see the value in kind of looking at that. It's a really amazing thing, and it helps. You know, I'm around most of the day, so so I'm usually awake during the day, so I can look to that as a way of practicing, and not just the wait for the supermoons. Yeah, no, that's a really, it's a really great thing to remember. And when it comes to the just space in general, would you ever, if you were ever given the chance to, would you ever go to space? Like, would you ever want to be um, in a rocket up past the stratosphere and all that?
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay. You'd go for it.
Of
Yeah.
course, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
I've been very struck. I've heard a story of a couple different astronauts that when they went up into Earth, it was profoundly moving for them to then look back at the Earth and see how precious and fragile and beautiful the Earth is. And I think that really shifted their view and appreciation for Earth by being able to be away from the Earth and then look back at it and be like, wow, this, we need to take care of this. So
Yeah.
everybody should have that experience.
I mean, it came from from for me an unexpected source, but William Shatner recently left the I guess the stratosphere or whatever it is. He
Oh,
went to
wow.
space. Yeah, and I don't know if you saw this, but he had a comment that basically when he left, he felt colder. He missed the warmth of Earth when he was out and up into space, and he basically his message back was almost this love and appreciation for what the earth is, and exactly what you're talking about, where you like as soon as you start to have a disconnection, you realize how important the connection is when your feet are on the ground. So yeah, I definitely would. I just don't know about being in a rocket and then going up and then things being the things. But yeah, I admire your willingness to go up there, and maybe one day I'll be brave enough. But and I was curious too, like when it comes to science writing, natural environmental causes writing, and things like that, are there any books that you're reading right now that are not necessarily Buddhist related or spiritually related, but just are like more natural world related that you'd recommend reading, or that you're just excited to be diving into right now?
Let's see. I just recently gave a BBC talk on a book I read last year, which was a conversation with His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Greta Thunberg about climate change, and that was a very inspiring. It was a helpful book because it was a conversation they had, and then the editor, Susan Bayer Wu, I'm forgetting the name of the book, unfortunately, but I'm sure if you Google Dalai
Hmm.
Lama and Greta Thunberg book, you'll find it. And it was helpful because she also contacted a bunch of different experts about kind of what we can do to help. Because I do sometimes get caught up in anxiety of like, what I want to help. How can I do something? And she asked all these different people, uh, religious backgrounds and scientific backgrounds, of how to help. And it was, I guess what was nice about it was there was a whole spectrum of answers. It's not one thing we have to do. It's whatever nourishes and connects your heart, and that there's a million different things we can do to help. And that was really, I really enjoyed that message and felt inspired by that.
It a future we can love? Is that
Yeah, I think
okay?
so.
Great. Okay, cool. I just took a quick moment to look that up. With that in mind, was there like a certain cause or like a certain entry point for caring for the natural world that you would want to focus on yourself? I mean, was there like what is there one I don't know, environment or animal or microclimate that you'd want to bring more attention to yourself?
Yeah, I'm still kind of sitting with that question. I mean, life at the Abbey is very, very busy, very full. And so I don't have too much time. I've tried to kind of allocate an hour a week of continuing to learn and to work on environmental stuff. But I'm still kind of, yeah, testing the waters and seeing where to really put my energy. Um, I mean, right now, kind of politically supporting kind of local politicians, I think is very important, and nationally, but also being more aware of local things. There's a really great organization in Washington that's an interfaith environmental group, and so they, yeah, of many different religious groups working together on different issues within Washington. And so I'm kind of linked in with them and sometimes attend their talks and events. And so that's been really nice to do that.
That's great. Wait,
Yeah.
and is that a part of the Abbey lifestyle where you are kind of politically engaged in some degree, or is there like a is there a political discourse that happens within the halls, or maybe in conference room away from the hall, or is it fully integrated into Buddhist practice there?
Oh, well, Venerable Children very much brings in kind of what's going on in politics and brings in the Dharma. Not as, I mean, she's not taking a political stance one way or another, but she very much teaches from examples of what's going on in the world today as examples of the Dharma and how we can work with our minds. And so we do, yeah, talk about that, and we're very much, yeah, stay informed. We're not, I wouldn't say politically active, but we're very much informed and engaged in
Hmm.
some way. So yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like that kind of helps coalesce a lot of teachings, is like seeing its expression elsewhere in the world, bringing it into a Buddhist context and kind of understanding what's going on, and that allowing for moments of maybe some compassion or maybe some understandings of just uh, why it took a month for this shipment to come in because of all the different things that have been going on, the interdependence of all of that. I could definitely see it, and I do appreciate the degree that local groups, political groups, or just participating in voting and engagement in that way alone with your local community, and how meaningful that is important. And what is the Abbey's relationship like with just like the with your neighbors? I mean, I know that you've met some of these uh people that you were talking about, the salt of the earth, kind of like table saw helping mechanical people. Um, what is, do you find yourself doing some events in town, or are people from town, do they come up, and is there the kind of relationship like that? And I was also just kind of curious too about when you leave the Abbey a little bit further away, no matter where it is. I feel like you might dress or you might carry yourself in a way that might stand out for other people, and what that experience has been like when you walk out as someone that is an ordained person, what those feelings of maybe looking like not everyone else does for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at the beginning it was a little unnerving, or I was self-conscious, especially, I mean, Newport, the town we live in, is a small town of 2,000 people, kind of in very much rural conservative area. And so we definitely stand out. But Venerable's been, I mean, the Abbey's been here for 20 years now, and we're very much, we go to the hardware store and the hospitals. And I mean, that's how I first met Venerable Children, was she was teaching in Newport, was she was teaching in this little town, and trying to kind of, yeah, just giving teachings to people who are interested. So that's how I first found her. I'm so grateful for that. And so we're actually continuing some of those teaching series at a little community center, and we get not a ton of people, maybe 10 or 15 people that come. So that's continuing on. And we do also teach in Spokane, which is kind of the bigger city, which is about an hour away. So we have, and we're on very good terms with our neighbors. Yeah, we tend to, we have a lot of woods because we work in the forest a lot, and so we oftentimes give him some extra firewood if we have it. And
Oh,
so
that's
yeah,
nice. Oh, that's great.
yeah.
Um, especially some extra treats with all those cranes and construction things coming in. It's like, here, here's some cookies. Sorry about the
Right.
sorry about the extra tire tread
No
through the
worries.
driveway and all that.
Yeah.
Um, well, that's a wonderful thing. And then also too, like just this forest. I'm just curious about it. It's I'd imagine a lot of it just being kind of wild forest, right? There's some trails that kind of cut it in and out, but it's mostly a forest for forest's sake. Is that
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Have you seen some animal wildlife that have been of interest?
Actually, when was it? A week or two ago, Venerable showed when I was walking out in the forest kind of early in the morning and ran into a cougar. And so I guess it's a powerful story that she saw the cougar and she said, I mean you no harm. Please don't harm me. And the cougar just looked at her and then ran away. So thank goodness.
Wow. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, we have cougars and bears and moose and bobcats and we have a lot of apple trees close to the Abbey. So we have a lot of deer and a lot of
Oh.
turkeys actually. So they're kind of, yeah, part of the family. So
Oh, I see. For a second, the way that was ordered, I thought the apple tree were also these kind of perpetrator, kind of like predator organisms, like Wizard of Oz apple trees. Yeah, wow, well, I'm really happy that everyone's safe, and I'm really glad that venerable children saw the cougar before the cougar. Uh, it was the other way around, and wow, that is amazing. And but also like that's exactly nature, right? It's mostly a peaceful forest, but then every once in a while there's a big lumbering bear that you have to respect the distance from and all that. Uh, that's amazing. That's really amazing. Well, so I had one more question before we come to a close on our conversation, which I've really enjoyed. Thank you so much for taking time. And I was curious if there's anything that you would want to promote or shine a light on, like whether it's a cause or a foundation. I know we talked about Finding a Future We Can Love as a book that's something that we can take a look at. But if there's anything that uh, you're working on, or anything that you'd want to have someone check out. Also, too, if there's any advice that you would want to give to somebody at any point in their Buddhist path.
final closing words.
Yes.
That's a good question. I mean, I guess what first comes to my mind is vote. Vote with wisdom and considering the best candidate for yeah, the compassion and wisdom of our country, because that's a very big importance for yeah. Um, and I don't know. Let's see. Things to share. I don't know, follow your heart, I guess I would say is, yeah, that, I mean, that's why I'm here today is I was in a retreat and just felt a very deep kind of awe of wanting to explore the potential of the mind and feeling a very deep peace. And I had the thought like, wow, how amazing it would be to be able to spend the rest of my life doing this. And the next thought was, you can. Why not? And that's kind of what sent me on this trajectory of becoming a monastic. And so to really take the time to go inward, because there's so many distractions out in the world. Um, and they don't really bring the deep happiness that we're all looking for. And so to take that time to go inward and to see what really is nourishing and to connect with that and to follow that. So
Wow.
I don't know. That's
No, that's a beautiful answer. That's a really wonderful answer. It is. I know that for my own life path and my own things, I try to follow that bliss. I try to follow the things that are important to me and feel fulfilling to me. But it takes a lot of courage and the amount of fulfillment and nourishment that you get from what you're doing and where you are right now, and the happiness that I'm getting from you is just a testament to that pursuit is well worthwhile. So I really appreciate you sharing that as advice. Um, well, Venerable Dekyi, I really do appreciate you speaking with me today, and I hope to check in with you soon, and I'm really excited for all the wonderful developments that are happening at Sravasti Abbey. The Buddha Hall looks amazing. It's happening. It's here. There's, of course, the Buddha statue still need, the whole setup needs to happen, but there's a really it's nearly there after so much time and effort. So I'm really excited for your community and just in all in general, all the things that are going on. So thank you so much for taking time to speak with me today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. This is a great project, and come visit and tell everybody to come visit.
We'll do, absolutely. And also, just to encourage everybody too to check out Sravasti Abbey's YouTube channel. It really is a wonderful resource. So I definitely want to, it's made me want to go real bad. So, so thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
You too. Bye.